Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
American Pie, a movie that came out in 1999. At the time, I was 18. I loved this movie. When I got into DVDs, collecting DVDs, this was the second DVD I ever purchased. I wanted it to be the first, but they were sold out at Costco where I got my DVD player. So I got forget the name of anyway, it doesn't matter. Stir of Echoes, which is a good movie, but totally different. That's a horror movie. This is a comedy, a raunchy teenage comedy where the dudes, friend group, a bunch of dudes, want to lose their virginity before they graduate high school and get into college. So it was, I graduated in 1999, so it was a movie that hit close to home at the time. It was very much my life, not really my life, but it was my age group. It was very similarly things that were going on in my head, which this movie I have not watched in a very long time. And I mean, there, on one hand, a ton of classic moments in this movie, which I will talk about. Just some classic moments. A word, a term was created in this movie. But at the same time, it is a movie for kids. It is not a movie for somebody who is 41. Because this movie is all about sex. Obviously, when you're a teenager and hormones are raging, it's almost impossible to think of anything except for sex when you're in your teens to early 20s. I would even say most of your 20s. And some people never grow out of it. For me, it's like, I got it. Like, and their desire to, like, culturally, I don't know if it's still this way, but culturally in the 90s when I was growing up, like, it was common for movies and things to be like, we need to lose our virginity before going to college. So, like, the idea that this movie does it I don't feel was a very unique premise, but it has so many funny bits, which a lot of the funny bits are whatever. The acting is horrible. Like, the few people in this movie that are at least decent at acting are the only people to have careers, really. Like, there's a lot of people in this movie that just kind of disappeared after this movie. Jason Biggs had a little bit of a career. He was okay in this movie. Let's see, who else is in this? The band girl. She had a career. Who else? Allison Hannigan playing Michelle, the band girl. Obviously career. She's great in it. Eugene Levy, amazing, playing Jim's dad, which Jason Biggs is Jim. But so many of these. Sean William Scott, obviously, had a career. One of the best. I mean, probably the funniest person in this movie. If they didn't have Sean William Scott, if they had some other person playing this, like, just douchebag, it probably wouldn't have. He's like one of the greats. And then Eddie K. Thomas had a bit of career playing Fitch. I actually related to Finch a lot. Finch is definitely the kid that was, like, way beyond his years. I at the time, I did not relate to him at all. At the time, I probably related to Jim the most. But as far as a 40-year-old dude, watching this movie again, aside from, like, the parents, Eugene Levy, Finch is the only one of that crew that I really remembered. But the other guys, I mean, I guess Chris Klein had a little bit of a career, but not so melodramatic. There was another, Natasha Lyonne, obviously, early Natasha Lyonne, probably, along with, like, Eugene Levy, probably, like, I don't know, Russian Doll is amazing. She's great. She's really great in everything. I actually had a huge crush on her in this movie. Out of all of the women in this movie, she was the one I had the biggest crush on. Tara Reid had a big career, a little bit anyway after that. I'm still missing, and it's probably, of course, because it's not on the just normal. Shannon Elizabeth obviously had a big career in like the 2000s. Not necessarily great performance. She's playing an exchange student. Not that it was a bad performance. I think there's somebody else as well that I'm missing. I know there is. It's the woman from American Beauty. Anyway. Casey Affleck has a small part in this. That's great. Blink-182 was a fun little cameo. But the love interest for Oz is not showing up here, or I just don't know her name. Mina Savari? I think that's it. Yeah. Her headshot's weird. Mina Savari, she had a good career as well. So it definitely launched a bunch of people's career. I mean, for sure, Jason Biggs. Like, this was a huge movie. It was huge. And I think it was just because there weren't any good raunchy teen comedies. And for me, 1999 was a crazy year for movies in general. And then this one was, and it's crazy how it doesn't hold up nearly as much. Like, problematic. like a lot of this is problematic. Like live streaming the foreign exchange student undressing in your room and running to a friend's house to watch it. Like, I mean, that's computers back then. You didn't have laptops or smartphones. So it's like you needed somebody else with, you had to be plugged into a modem. It was crazy times back then. But that's not like, and then he goes back and, I mean, live streaming, like with My Free Cams or like Chatterbait or any of those like live streaming My Free Cams, like those are huge now, way before. So it was way ahead of its time, live streaming sex stuff. Like that's a whole industry now. So ahead of its time there. MILF, created by this show, and it's Harold from Harold and Kumar, which his name is which he is a very small character, John Cho, MILF guy, but he's also in the jazz chorus that Oz joins to. So they make this deal, this bet, right? Like going to the gym, they're comparing it, where you need somebody there to motivate you. And they all need motivating to lose their virginity. One of the guys is in a relationship, but his girlfriend only gives him blowjobs, where she doesn't even swallow. She spits it into at the party. She spits it into a glass of beer, which hilariously gets drank by Sean William Scott's character, not Stifler. Is it Stifler that he plays? Right? Yeah, Stifler. Which there's this Stifler, despite being a huge douchebag, really gets the short end of the stick a lot. Like, he drinks the cum-in beer. His mom is a MILF, so he has to deal with that, where everybody in his school is attracted to his mom, which is not something that's cool. That's not something you want to hear, that people in your age group want to have sex with your mom. Literally creating the term MILF from this movie. And then also Shitbrick sleeps with her. Which I'm jumping all over the place. Obviously, this has been out for over 20 years. 23 years. It's insane. It's how old I am. It is ridiculous. There are people watching and or listening to this that were born after the release of this movie. and may or may not have ever even watched this movie. This is going to show up on TikTok as like this trend of like this hidden gem. Although I don't think this one's going to be a hidden gem. I think modern day raunchy comedies are way better quality than this one. But again, this one, like so many classic moments. The Many Faces is an ongoing abstract ink portrait series that I started many years ago. I release a new face every day, but go to inspireddisorder.com to check them out. So many available. But as a listener to The Ray Taylor Show, you can save 10% when you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out. So go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. Go check them out, browse the entire collection, and when you decide on a piece, or maybe multiple pieces, make sure you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out, and you'll save 10%. As a big thank you for checking out my work, for collecting my work, and for listening to The Ray Taylor Show. And with that said, let's get back to the show. Soundtrack is fun, though. I mean, give me alternative music from the 90s, and I'm in. I love that. Love all of the 90s music. And it's even got the cheesy music, like from the Bare Naked Ladies. I'm fine with that. It brings me back to that time. A better time. An easier time. Watching scrambled porn is just so much of my pubescent life. Was watching scrambled porn. Like my porn growing up, instead of finding pages of it in trees in the desert, like most people do, they find the porn magazines in like the forest, or here there's scattered tamarisk trees. That there's a lot more back in the day, but you'd go in there and eventually you would see like empty Mickey's bottles and some porn strewn about. But aside from that, on TV, you had channels like Spice Channel, but they were all scrambled. So you could still turn it to that channel, and you can hear everything that's going on. You just can't really see it very well. And that's how we're introduced to Jim at the beginning of the movie, where he is jacking off into a sock, which is something I've never done. It is probably one of the most common things, one of the most common tropes in movies and TV. I don't know how many people actually do it, but he is jerking off into a sock, watching scrambled porn. His mom comes in. He can't get the TV to turn off, so it's this awkward moment, obviously, and his dad walks in, which Eugene Levy, amazing, and the entire relationship of Jim and his dad are the greatest awkward moments. Those moments stand up, I think. I think Jason Biggs playing Jim, I think he's great. I think he plays, out of the actors in this movie, he's doing a good job. He embodies his character. But then you have other guys that are just, they're acting as if they're in like a soap opera. It is so overacting. And even towards the end of this movie, where they're all kind of finally, they found female counterparts that actually want to have sex with them, right? Instead of them trying to figure out the way to unlock women or trick them into having sex with you or whatever it is. All of the things that dudes, when they're kids and have hormones raging through them, and they don't have any idea how to accomplish this goal of having sex with a woman or a man, depending on your preference. Obviously, this movie is all heterosexual people. Homosexual people didn't exist in 1999, at least in this movie. But depending on what you're attracted to, you still have hormones raging through your body, wanting to fulfill this biological need to procreate, despite the fact that there's way too many people. Our desire to procreate needs to tail off, and I think it eventually is. But when you have that mindset, you're being drugged and brainwashed into thinking and striving to do that thing. All you can think about is having sex, and all you know The very little you know and experienced in life is like, oh, I need to manipulate a situation into this happening instead of actually just finding another person that's into you and wanting to do it, which those people are out there. You just got to find them. And they all find them, which is kind of the redemptive moment at the end of it, because all of the ways in which they want to trick the person, manipulate the situation into them wanting to have sex with them doesn't work. Like Oz joins the jazz choir, which is a brilliant move, but there ends up being an issue because he's like it comes out that he's not really into it. It's the lacrosse thing, but at the end he runs to the show, which he instantly gets back into just effortlessly gets back in the fold with the jazz choir crew while they're about to perform. You have the one guy who's got a girlfriend, and it's like, oh, you just got to tell her you love her. But he doesn't want to lie. So then it's like, oh, you have to give her an orgasm. Before she has sex with you, you need to give her an orgasm. Which is kind of a cart before the horse kind of a situation. But in an attempt to do that, he gets hooked up by his brother, his older brother, Casey Affleck, who has this like sex book that has been passed down from awkward kid to awkward kid as they add in their secret ways of having sex. It's like the modern day Kama Sutra of this high school. So he just needs to learn how to eat her out in the right way, because she's always faked it. His acting, not good. His acting is not good. Tara Reid's acting, a little bit better, still not great. Like, just very melodramatic. Like, everything, and a lot of the scenes, it feels like the things he's saying is like in ADR. Like, they recorded it after. Like, it's so off, it doesn't feel like he's actually saying, like, it feels like it's cut from a different movie almost when him and Chris Klein speak. It's like, what? Like, you are really trying to, like, it feels like they're nervous and trying to be cool and calm, but they are so overly cool and calm that it feels fake. Where Jason Biggs' character is allowed to be awkward, and I think it just fits within him. And similarly to Eddie K. Thomas, who plays Finch, like, he really embodies that character, like, you believe it, even when he's flirting with the MILF, Stifler's mom. He has a confidence that comes from somewhere. Like, he is actually confident, more so than he probably should be. There's the classic, I mean, obviously classic. It's like the biggest moment. I mean, culturally, MILF impacted culture to this day. That's like the biggest impact of this movie. But the most well-known part of this movie, even for people I would imagine that haven't watched the movie but just know what American Pie is, it's in the title. But Jim is asking Oz what it feels like to go to third base. What does it feel like to finger a girl? I don't know the bases, again, and I'm sure people have different definitions for what each base means. But in the universe of this movie, fingering a girl is third base. And Oz compares it to putting your fingers in a warm apple pie. So there's the classic scene where Jim comes home, and on the kitchen counter is a freshly baked apple pie. Nobody's home. He sticks his finger in, looks at the messy hole. Smash cut to Dad coming home, and Jim half naked on top of the counter, balls deep in this apple pie. Cut to completely mangled apple pie inside this tinfoil dish, and Jim's dad saying, well, This is going to be interesting. How are we going to explain this thing? Funny. I mean, just the bonkersy of bonkers moments. But it's like a classic. It's like a classic moment. So Oz joins a jazz chorus. Finch has what's her name? Her character's name. He has Natasha Lyonne's character Jessica. He pays her to spread a rumor about his prowess, which the rumor kind of evolves and changes, and it's a telephone situation where it's always something positive, whether it's a big dick or he beat up Stifler or, this thing or the other thing. All kinds of rumors abound about Finch and why he would be a good person to go to prom with if they are looking to hook up. And there's some mutual respect between those two characters towards the end, towards prom, where she used the money that he paid her. She used part of that money to give him a gift, which is sweet. There's just a mutual respect. Like, you could see, on some level, see them hooking up, which they never do. Because despite the fact that the rumors that were spread about how amazing Finch is, they get ruined by Stifler giving him a laxative. And then there's the hilarity, because he refuses to ever use the restrooms at school. Always waits to go take a shit for when he gets home. Which I know a lot of people like that. I don't care. If I need to go, I'll just go. But he's forced to go one day when Stifler gives him that thing, which is a hilarious scene, makes him embarrassed. So now it negates all of the rumors. So they have this fun kind of back and forth, Finch and Stifler, which of course Finch gets back at him when he sleeps, when Stifler walks in on him sleeping with his mom, the MILF. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. And of course, you have Jim trying to get with the exchange student, where his friends are like, oh, you should live stream it. And then there's the whole situation where which I forgot, that he, while live streaming it, runs to his friend's house to then watch the live stream, because he couldn't be in the room while she changes after ballet practice. And they have a beer for him. And then they see her grab the porn out of his end table by his bed. And she starts masturbating, and his friends are like, now you gotta go, bro. And then you find out that everybody in town was sent the link. Because somehow, like, this is before, like, people really knew what email was. Like, somehow Jim accidentally emailed everybody in the town. Like, there's some kind of directory that he was pulling from, and he accidentally said, send all. It's not like he had everybody's email in the town prior to that. Nobody's ever had that kind of access. There's not like a yellow pages for email addresses. But in the reality of this movie, people don't know the internet that well. Of course, he accidentally, which makes for hilarious. That's how Blink-182 gets a cameo. That's how everybody sees Jim show up, do his dance, his sexy dance. Which is just, I mean, I've done that. I used to use humor quite a bit early on in my sexual career. And I think I enjoy making people laugh in general. And there is something that it definitely adds something to when done at the right times. Obviously, there's completely wrong times to be comedic while having sex, but there is a lane to combine sexy and funny. And I think in some ways it depends on the girl, obviously. But, for Jim to pull it off, it's not that unbelievable that she would necessarily be into funny and sexy. Some women think funny is sexy. And something that I really related to Jim is the fact that he prematurely ejaculated not only once when she touched his dick for the first time, but for a second time when he goes in for round 2. Now, in a lot of ways, when I was that age, yes, didn't last very long. But also recharged very fast. So both things I have memories of relating to. Whether that happens to me now, that's a different story, and not quite as fun of a comedy as it is in this movie. But those are things that I related to, but it scars him because everybody sees it. So when I did it, I felt immense amounts of shame. Not understanding that it's like pretty normal in a lot of situations to come fast. And the idea of lasting a very long time is pretty ridiculous. Like, going multiple times may be more advantageous than like just never being able to go for like an hour. Like when people who like brag about being able to go a very long time probably don't and probably haven't had that much experience having sex. Like it's one of those tells where it's like, I don't know who finds that necessarily a good thing, that you can't come for a very long time. Because there's a happy meet, like it depends on the person too that you're with, but finding that kind of sweet spot for both of you is a great thing to discover. But yeah, Jim, I felt his pain. I felt massive amounts of shame. And this movie, I'm sure that's why I love this movie so much. I like related so much to Jim. I never had sex with an apple pie, but never came across one at the right moment either. So I can't say that I wouldn't. What else? The band camp date. So when everything goes bad for Jim, he like the band camp girl who's, you've seen her in the background being super nerdy. Like I really appreciate that kind of person. Like her just willingness to be funny and completely open and maybe not have the best stories, have a lot of stories, but maybe not the best stories. But then also her being like super open. Like the way she is in this movie, I feel is far more common in most people growing up, especially having the internet available, having porn. I think the openness that Band Girl has in this movie is far more common, Allison Hannigan, than back in 1999. That would be my opinion. Whereas, like, when they hook up after prom and she's like, what's my name? Say my name, bitch. And they're having this thing, like, Jim finds the perfect girl to have sex with. She's just, she wants a sure thing. Like, she's, like, they all kind of find their person, and they all have both come to the, like, they all realize that, it's not like they're all mutually, like, they're all looking for the same thing. But some of the situations are very, like, Oz and who was he with? It was Mina Savari, Heather. So Chris Klein and Mina Savari, they're like on some dock somewhere, and there's like blankets, and like she's like slowly taking off his shirt. It is the most sappy, romantic, disgusting, vomit-inducing type of high school teenage sex scene. It is like two kids that like are mimicking something a single mom would have, like something like a love scene that she would see on like Lifetime or something. That's what they're reenacting. This like unrealistic, overly sappy, romantic kind of like love scene. Like, what are you doing? Which just the fact that it's that over the top, like disgusting, I guess is funny as well. It's like I'm laughing at it, not with it, type of a deal. And then similar to the other guy, which I think his name is Thomas Ian Nichols, who plays Kevin, when he's with Tara Reid, and he tells her that he loves her and all this stuff, and he already made her come, which that's a funny scene earlier on in the movie. He's at her house, which is another situation I remember having a girlfriend, and like her parents were home, and then I'd be like, you know, basically doing what he was doing. But I never made my girl scream like that. But there's the whole scene where the dad's going upstairs and he's about to like walk in on his daughter having her pussy eaten out. But before he gets to the door, she's yelling out, "I'm coming," because it's the first time she's ever came. And he's doing it to her because he got that book of sex things. But now it's like, so he did make her come. So now she's like, she wants to have sex with him now. And that's an overly romantic kind of a thing. But I remember as a kid going like, oh, man. I was, thinking of these as like realistic scenarios. And then looking back on it now, I was like, that is so ridiculous. That is so ridiculous. And of course, Shipbrick hooks up with Stifler's mom. So everybody gets laid before graduation. And they all cheers to the next chapter in their life. And we'll see what happens. I'm going to watch the whole franchise, not the American Pie Presents films. I didn't want to go through 10 of these movies. But I have never finished the original 4. I think American Wedding is the last one in the original franchise. So I'm going to go through and watch all of the American Pie movies, all 4 of the American Pie movies, because I fell off probably after American Pie 2. I don't really remember 3, and I know I haven't watched 4, at least as far as my memory. Maybe I blocked them out. But I'm kind of interested to see where it goes and see if there's any relatability to those years after high school. I never had sex. I didn't have sex until after I graduated. So I didn't have the kind of moral support that these guys had in their high school senior year. But it's weird. It's a weird thing that this movie on so many levels is bad and doesn't hold up. But then like so many classic moments came from it. It's insane. MILF. Mom I'd Like to Fuck came from American Pie. Anyway, until next week, and I'll review American Pie 2. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.